Hello, ladies. Happy Wednesday. Today on the podcast, I have got Melissa Hall Klepacki, and she's a wellness expert dedicated to helping people overcome health challenges and achieve optimal well being. Sounds familiar, right? I love having other people on the podcast who have similar values and have things to share. So, Melissa really highlights working with clients who have chronic constipation. Okay. She is also known as the poop whisperer. So, if you suffer with chronic constipation or have to depend on medications just to poop, you're going to want to listen to this one. You're listening to the What the Gut podcast, where busy moms can come for a holistic approach to health and vitality. I'm Allison, your host, a holistic health and wellness coach. In this space, we'll dive into the intricacies of achieving holistic wellness while balancing the demands of daily life as a busy mom. What the Gut is your haven for navigating the challenges that come with juggling numerous tasks while aiming for a healthier, more balanced life. Join me as we uncover practical solutions to common health hurdles, from managing fatigue to understanding all things gut health. Through insightful discussions, actionable insights, and tailored lifestyle strategies, my goal here is to empower you to embrace a vibrant, nourishing life while saying goodbye to being overwhelmed and exhausted. So if you're ready to embark on this transformative journey towards holistic well-being, hit that subscribe button. Get ready to discover the secrets to thriving in motherhood while nurturing your overall wellness. A quick reminder, everything discussed here is for educational and empowering purposes only and is not intended for personalized medical advice. Consult your personal healthcare provider for personalized medical advice. Welcome to What the Gut, where we create our own path to holistic health, one episode at a time. I'm really excited to have you here today, Melissa. You are somebody else who I know is just super into gut health and finding the root cause. Welcome.
Thanks. I'm so happy to be here. You're right. I am all about gut health and all about finding the root cause, because so many of us have been told at a physician's office that they don't know why we're having symptoms. And there is always a why. Always. The body just doesn't break down. And I always liken it to people driving in their cars. We take such good care of our cars in America, right? We get our oil changes on time. That red light comes on and we take it in to see what's wrong with our car. And the car undergoes all kinds of diagnostics to figure out what's wrong, to figure out the why behind that red light. Because if you just drove around with that red light on and ignored it or put duct tape over it, for God's sake, something would break down. And so that red light is the same that happens with our bodies. That red light is just a symptom that shows up. And if we Band-Aid it or duct tape it, cover it up, continue to move on, problems percolate deeper. And and we'll show you, hey, you didn't listen to the first cry for help. Here's a second and a third and a fourth. And guess what? Now when you have 2 and 3 and 4 symptoms, you have earned a diagnosis. And that diagnosis will get you a medication, which may or may not work, and definitely will cause other issues in your body.
I love all of that because I've heard the comparison of treat your body like you would like a Lamborghini, as far as eat right, work out, take care of it just like you would like this nice car. But I haven't ever heard the comparison of like, okay, think about like the diagnostics of it. If one thing goes wrong, you take it in. I mean, people do that. People take care of their cars. But yeah, it's crazy. I've got training in conventional medicine and functional medicine. In conventional medicine, that's exactly what it is. I mean, you learn what are the symptoms and then here's a diagnosis. It's just like an algorithm. And it's not personalized. It's, okay, this is what they have. Well, then this is what you do. This is the medication. That doesn't work. Okay, then like this is the next step. But there's never even the opportunity to ask why. It's always just what. It's like, well, what is it? Right. But that's something too that blew my mind once I moved into functional medicine and had my own health journey, was like, I never even had the chance to ask why. Like, it amazes me.
I encourage everybody to be asking why and be shocked or not be shocked when your doctor says, oh, we don't know why, but just take this medication and it'll clear it up.
Right.
Watch
Sure.
how quickly you are dismissed when you are asking why you are sick. And if
Right.
your doctor does not know why you are sick, there is no chance for healing.
Yeah.
There is a
They
chance for remedying, for band-aiding, for
mm,
getting you through, for losing that rash that popped up on your shoulder. But if you think that putting a cream on your shoulder is going to solve the problem, you're either going to drive that rash deeper and it's going to appear in Chinese medicine, which is what I studied. We would say that a rash is heat escaping the body. So if you stop the heat from escaping the body here on the shoulder, it's going to show up somewhere else. It might show up as a swollen joint. It might show up as inflamed guts. It might
yeah.
show up as chronic pain somewhere, but it's going to show up because it's still there. It is the
Yeah.
why. It is the why. And when you figure that why out and you heal there, the symptoms disappear. It's really as beautiful and as simple as that.
Yeah. I like your take on that. And I'm curious for other things like sinus infection, these acute things that pop up. Is that your outlook on that as well?
Well, I think, I think there's always a why, right? Why do we have a sinus infection? Were you exposed to some sort of toxin that you were allergic to that caused a problem, right? Is it an
Yeah.
infection, right? Infections happen. But there are ways to clear that and to keep that, we should all be considering nasal rinses if we have seasonal allergies. I live in New Jersey. It is the fall. It hasn't rained in 6 weeks. It is dry. Leaves are falling. Mold grows. And lots of people have sinus issues. I love the Navage, if you haven't heard of it. I tried for years. I went to acupuncture school in the 90s with crunchy, crunchy people who were making their own kombucha back then, which is not for me, and doing neti pot. I don't know if you've ever seen a neti pot. It's spelled Neti for those listening. And it looks like a little genie's lamp. And you're supposed to tilt your head and pour it up one nose and let it pour out the other. And it literally made me feel like I was drowning. I just couldn't do it. And people were like, do it in the shower. Then I tried another system, which was a squirt bottle that you squirted up your nose. And I just felt like my eye was on fire. There's a little tool called the Navage. It's around $100. You can often find it on sale. It's electronic. I should get it. You fill the top of it up with water. Always, for anyone listening, always distilled water. You don't ever want to put tap water with all those toxins up your nose because that's so
Right.
close to your brain. Distilled water and one of their little packs, which is a saline solution. I sometimes will use herbs in there as well if I'm fighting something. Close it, you put it up to your nose, you push a button, and it takes it's under 2 minutes. It switches sides, so it'll push water up the left nostril, pull it out the right, deposit it in the bottom of the machine, and then reverse it. To set it up takes about a minute. It takes about 1.5 to 2 minutes to do it. You unsnap it, rinse it out, hang it upside down, and you're done. Less than 5 minutes, you've completely cleaned out your sinuses.
Yeah.
Great for people, right, who've got sinus issues. So, yes, I
Yeah.
think, we have to figure out the why, but if you know that you have sensitivities to outdoor allergens, right, we can get a handle on that by keeping those sinus pathways clear every day.
Right. Yeah. That makes sense. I'm just thinking there's a time and a place for conventional medicine. But when it comes to like acute type stuff, there's so many other routes that can be taken.
Yeah, and
And
I have a plethora. I mean, if you could see around my office right now, I probably have 200 bottles of supplements, and they're all open. They've all been used by me. I never recommend something for a client that I haven't used myself, but there are a ton of really strong, powerful herbs that will fight infection. You do not need an antibiotic a lot of the times. Ear infections, not often. Sinus infections, a lot of times we can fight them ourselves. People need to be patient, especially when
yes.
using herbs. People think that, they're going to take one dose and be cured. Herbs work a little bit slower. They work synergistically. Drugs are sort of, rockets. And so for me, a combination for a sinus infection would be the nasal rinsing and some sort of herbal remedy that contains some good
Yeah.
Yeah, that's been my go-to for a couple of years as well. Melissa, I think that did I see that you had like your own autoimmune issues? Yeah. So, right. Like I said, I studied Chinese medicine back in the 90s when I was in my early 20s. I was very young at the time studying and practiced for a little while, practiced in sports medicine because I myself was an athlete and I saw the power of acupuncture needles in rehabilitating athletes and I had a lot of fellow athletes that I was working with and on. And then got married, moved to New Jersey, and had 2 children. I had 2 young boys, and I woke up one morning and my left arm was numb. My hand was numb, kinda like you slept on your neck wrong. You know that feeling, like and about an hour went by, and I did the stretches, and I thought, "It's something's not right. It's not waking up." I took my kids to a music class that morning. I was feeling kind of draggy, and I remember I came home and said to it was a Saturday, said to my husband, "Could you watch the boys? I just need to lay down." And I went to lay down and I was watching TV and I thought, is my left foot going numb? I called my doctor's office. I drove to the doctor's office. By the time I got in there, my left side of my face was numb. Oh my goodness. So I went to the hospital. I checked in for a 3-day stay where they found nothing. I was fine. All lab tests were normal. All lab tests were normal. I mean, I was like, how familiar does this sound? Right? I did have one my white blood cell count was low. That was it. Out of all the markers, out of all the scans, out of all the studies I had done. I had that numbness for about a week. And when I remember it the numbness left and I had these bad headaches for a week. And then the headaches left and I had a week of just severe fatigue. And then as quickly as it came, it was gone. Interesting. I was followed by a neurologist for 6 months. They were ruling out MS. They had ruled out stroke in the hospital. And that summer, as I was being followed for that, which was, now non-existent, those symptoms were gone, I started to develop gastrointestinal pain. Really interesting, strange, quarter-like size pain points. When my stomach would be palpated or they would touch, right? They would find these very sore points. I had an endoscopy, a colonoscopy, and I even swallowed a camera and had what's called a pill biopsy, pill endoscopy, I think, where the pill goes through and it shoots pictures of your whole GI tract. All my studies were normal. Right? I mean, no one could figure out what was wrong with me. I was really sick. I had lost weight. I was dragging. There were days I couldn't get off the couch. I finally found a functional medicine doctor, and she ran a whole bunch of studies on me and found out that I had super high levels of mercury. And so we thought, oh, that makes a lot of sense. So I did some
Super
chelation.
neurotoxic. Yeah.
Very neurotoxic, which could have explained the neurological symptoms of the numbness, right?
Yeah.
And just toxic in general. So, and I had a bunch of mercury fillings that were improperly removed. Most of us had our fillings improperly removed, which if you've just had them removed by a regular dentist, they were improperly removed. And that exposes you to a lot of mercury. So I went through this chelation process for maybe once a month for 9 months. And was retested and my levels were perfect and I felt terrible. All my labs were normal now and I felt worse than ever. So my brilliant doctor was a part of a mastermind with other doctors and presented my case and said, we are all scratching our heads. And somebody piped up and said, that woman has Lyme disease. Please get her tested at the correct lab. I had been tested at LabCorp probably a half dozen times, all negative. I was tested at a lab in California back in 2014 called IGeneX and came up raging positive for Lyme disease.
Wow.
Just so anyone out there listening, I have so much to say about Lyme disease, and this is not dedicated, this talk, to Lyme disease, and I have a lot of experience here, but it is incredibly underdiagnosed. I have clients in Arizona, in Florida, who've been told Lyme disease does not exist here. However, those people, even all of those people, I think, have been somewhere in the Northeast for a camping trip to see a national monument, right? Something where they could have picked it up. It exists in all 50 states. It exists on every continent right now except for Antarctica. It is a major problem. And the second problem with Lyme disease, if you are listening out there and you had Lyme disease, you were treated for Lyme disease, and you are still suffering, 70% of Lyme cases are accompanied by what's called a co-infection, which means the tick that bit you had more than one infection in its saliva. It gave you Lyme disease and. I had Lyme disease and Babesia, Bartonella, and Rocky Mountain spotted fever, which explains why I was so sick. Had I
Yeah.
not been properly tested and only treated for Lyme disease with doxycycline, it would have treated the Lyme and some of the Bartonella, but not touched the Babesia or the Rocky Mountain spotted fever, right?
And the symptoms with Lyme are so broad too. They can be so broad.
Mine started out as neurological.
Yeah.
That was Lyme. Then it went to my GI. I had periods over the course of, it's been 10 years now. And in fact, this morning, Allison, I was looking through my, your memories on your phone. 10 years ago today, I was admitted to the hospital because for Lyme disease, they gave me a PICC line with antibiotics. So it's a line that gets implanted into your arm, goes into your heart, and it's like sort of a direct line. And
Very invasive.
I had a massive blood clot and almost died 10 years ago today.
Oh my goodness.
I was admitted because I had what they think was a small pulmonary embolism. And so they pulled the PICC line and they started me on a series of antibiotics, different antibiotics for each infection. If you can imagine, there were probably 12 rounds, 15 rounds of antibiotics. I was so constipated. Not only was I sick now, not only was I sick with Lyme disease and all of the myriad of symptoms, but I was incredibly constipated and miserable. And my doctor said, well, I said, why is this happening? And he said, eat some fiber, drink some water, take some Miralax, and you'll be fine.
Because that's what they're taught.
That's what they're taught. And that didn't fix me. It got real old real quick after about a month of having blowout diarrhea when I wasn't constipated, right? I mean, losing all those nutrients. That's what happens when you're taking Miralax. You are pushing things through your system way too quickly. Nothing's digesting, nothing's absorbing. People are winding up nutrient deficient who are constipated. It's terrible. And so I went back after, I had gone to that functional medicine doctor who did all of that healing work with me and was so great. But when I figured out I had Lyme, she said, I'm obviously not a Lyme expert, and there are a few. Please find one, which I did. I found an amazing Lyme doctor. And when I had gotten myself back into that hole of being really sick after the antibiotics, I went back to her and said, help me. And you know what she did? She said, okay, let's run a gut test. Because I have no idea what's going on in there, and you have no idea what's going on in there. We could guess and throw a bunch of stuff at you, but let's test and figure out what's wrong. So we ran a gut test, and we realized that not only had I wiped out all the good bacteria in my gut, but I had a bunch of bad guys in there. And so we needed to really remodel the gut. I needed to change my diet a little bit. I started on a line of supplements, some to nourish my gut lining, which was a mess, some herbs to help me move my bowels more regularly, and some herbs to kill the bad guys that were there. And then, of course, a beefy probiotic and probiotic foods, which was really important, adding things like kimchi and kefir into my diet, and healed beautifully and started feeling better. Even though I still was testing positive for Lyme, working on my gut intensely changed my life.
Yeah. That's
Changed
awesome.
my life. And so now that's what I do with people. And I do see tons of people with chronic illness, a lot of people who have undiagnosed Lyme disease, but everyone needs to start with gut health because almost everyone that comes to me is either constipated or diarrhea or has alternating, right, has just driven their gut health down with a bunch of antibiotics, things like pesticides on our food, even things like Advil, which seem, innocuous, like they're not going to do any damage, are actually damaging the gut.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Especially when taken so frequently. Like
candy.
Yeah. So now you work with other people. You're so passionate about what you do, and your clients call you the poop whisperer,
They do.
which I love. Like, of all nicknames, I love it.
No, let me just say this. I, as a kid, as a young woman, poop was not something that I ever wanted to talk about. It was not proper. It was smelly. It was embarrassing. It was not ladylike, my father would say. That's not ladylike. And if you had told me 10 years ago that I would be standing on national stages and on national podcasts talking about poop, I would have bet pretty much the farm on the fact that would never happen for me.
Right.
God had other plans. God had other plans for me.
He does that. He does that in a silly way, doesn't he?
Mm-hmm.
I think that just in general, because I sit here and preach so much too about just poop. You've got to be pooping, like out of all your drainage pathways, like that has got to be open. And it's the little things. Like, you think it's a little thing, in general, but I mean, that plays such a huge role. And I know that you talk a lot about chronic constipation and how it's killing you. Can you elaborate on that?
Sure, yeah. So, I mean, number one, imagine being constipated and having all those toxins sit in your colon. We're wondering why all these young people are getting colon cancers at rates that are unheard of.
Yeah.
You are eating processed foods with seed oils. They are toxic. They are sitting in your colon and they are causing cell changes.
Yeah.
We are what we eat. There is no escaping that. We can try as much as we want to fool Mother Nature with fat-free and fat disguised things, right? And sugar-free and the body knows. The body wants single ingredient foods, right? A chicken breast. That's how I cook. I have a teenage son, one in college and one at home and a husband, and I'm cooking really simply. A
Yeah.
baked sweet potato, some roasted vegetables, and some chicken breast. That's dinner. Nothing, it's not hard, and it's not as expensive as some of those prepared foods that people are buying that cost a fortune. Even if
Right.
I
Well,
go down to my local market and I buy a chicken breast, organic, I don't even know if it's organic, to be honest, but it's probably going to run me $10. I can buy a package of chicken breast organic for $10 for 3 chicken breasts and feed my family.
mhm.
I need
But
to
you're
make smarter
also
choices.
Yeah, but you're also, like, not eating as frequently because it's keeping you fuller longer and not just spiking up your blood sugar, like all these processed foods. So you're really not spending you're really not spending as much in the long run. So
Not if you're eating whole foods, yeah. So yeah, chronic constipation, right? The problem is, number one, the toxin backup is a problem. Number two, most people with chronic constipation are resorting to some sort of medication, herbal or pharmaceutical, that's going to drive their bowels out. So that means that day's food gone. Kiss
right.
those omegas goodbye. Kiss those B vitamins that you needed so desperately bye-bye. No magnesium for you today. It's a
Yeah.
big deal. People don't really think about that, but it's a big deal. Your body needs all of that to run itself.
Mhm.
We
So
talked about running the Lamborghini. Like, you don't, no one with a Lamborghini is putting shitty gas in their car. They're
this is
not.
true. This
You're
is true.
not. So why are we doing that to ourselves? When we eat those seed oils, we are putting shitty gas in our bodies and expecting them to run like Lamborghinis.
Yeah, that's true.
Also,
Oh,
I want to
that's true.
say, Allison, it's not our fault. It's not our
Mhm.
fault. We have been so duped and so greenwashed and so led to believe that when we walk into a market, anything that we purchase is safe.
Mhm.
And that's not the case.
Right.
Not the case.
Also, too, just even I see so many people who depend on their provider to talk to them about their health. If they even say diet and exercise more, okay, like that's as far as it gets. Like conventional medicine, they just don't go in depth, even in their education on nutrition
In
and
depth, in depth. I just listened to a doctor from Stanford say that she didn't have 1 hour of nutrition training in her 4 years of medical school at Stanford. Not
yeah,
1 hour.
I believe it. And I mean, unless you do continuing education on it, once you're out practicing, you don't have time to go back and learn these things. And so then you're not telling your patients, and they think my provider has what's best for me. They haven't told me I need to eat better. They haven't
Or
told
in
me.
fact, time out. In fact, if you ask your doctor, and if you have cancer, I have a good friend went to the doctor with cancer and said, "I don't know what to do. I don't know what to eat." And he said, "You have cancer. Just eat what you want." That is the worst advice I have ever heard in my entire life. We know that cancer is a metabolic disease that is driven by metabolic processes that are screwed up when we are eating high fructose corn syrup, right? When we are eating seed oils and processed foods. That's what they're telling cancer patients.
That's what they're taught to tell people, and that's what their mentors taught them. And somewhere along the line, people just are not about living a healthy lifestyle anymore, but they
Well,
don't
that's why
realize.
people got sick in the first place, generally.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? I mean, cancer, we don't know. I know doctors that say it's 5 to 10% genetic and the rest is really lifestyle and bad luck. There's plenty of
Yeah.
healthy people out there that are getting cancers left and right.
Right.
Yeah, but for the most part, the things that I'm seeing in my practice around metabolic health are all self-driven. And again, not our fault. Because
Right. Right.
we haven't been trained. If you grew up, my husband grew up in a household where the food was put on the table family style, along with a 2-liter bottle of soda. And you just took what you wanted and drank your soda, and that was that.
Yeah.
And I grew up in a household where it was milk or water, and your food was plated and delivered to the table based on my mother's, this is what you should be eating. You're 6 years old, you're 10 years old, you're a teenager, etc. Very different,
Yeah.
So I think people really need to consider not only what they're eating, but how they are eating
Mm-hmm.
and being mindful about eating.
Yeah.
Because
Very
a
much.
lot of us are eating on the run and we're not meal planning and we're not prepping and we're not thinking. I talk a lot about the stress in this society. And
Mm-hmm.
I talk a lot about the woman who has an alarm set for 6:15 and she wakes up, she runs to the bathroom, she turns on the shower, she brushes her teeth, she takes a shower, she does a half shave and a shampoo. She gets out, she puts her clothes on, she dries her hair, she puts her makeup on, she runs downstairs, she makes her coffee, she feeds her dogs, and she's out the door by 6:43 to get to work, to catch the train, to drop the kids, whatever. There is no time in the morning for pooping. If
No.
you are not making time for pooping, you won't poop. And so part of the work that I do with people is getting yourself into a parasympathetic state in the morning, not waking up to that shrill alarm and feeling like your heart is racing and you're being chased by a tiger. If we can stay in a parasympathetic state and have a more relaxed morning, which might mean waking up at 5:55 instead of 6:15, which might mean going to bed at 10:30 instead of 11:15, right? We always back ourselves out and we make gradual changes. Simple changes, better choices. That's the way to get to wellness. We don't make these sweeping, huge changes, right? So let's talk for a second about this chronic constipation and the 8 root causes, because when you go to your doctor with constipation, right, we'll revisit this for a second, and you say, doctor, I'm pooping once or twice a week and it's been a problem for 3 months. He'll say, take some Miralax, eat some fiber, drink some water. And you'll say, why am I constipated? And he'll say, I don't know, like take the medication. I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to tell you the 8 reasons why you might be constipated. Number 1 is stress and anxiety. You're not pooping because you are in that state of fight or flight. Meditation, mindfulness, breath work, all of those things can help to regulate your nervous system a little bit better. It should be a part, probably if you're not having a nice morning poop, that's probably part of your picture. And when I talk also about 8 root causes, I want everyone to remember you generally have more than one, right? It's
Yeah.
never really that simple. It's not like this is the reason. It's probably multifactorial. So one of the reasons for you could be stress. Number 2, and one of the most common ones, is not being hydrated. Now, that's a little bit different than not drinking enough water. We need to make sure that the water that we're drinking is getting into the cells, which is where electrolytes come into play. For those clients that I have that are doing an amazing job at diet, I have some that do the Whole30, which is a diet plan, which is amazing for getting healthy and very strict. They can wind up with not enough salt in their diets, and they can wind up easily dehydrated because they're not holding on to their water. So if you're not eating a ton of processed foods and you're really a whole foods person, make sure you're getting electrolytes or at the very least salt in the mornings. A little bit of salty lemon water can go a long way. You can use, now there's 100 companies making electrolytes. Just please watch out for artificial colors, sugar, or sweeteners, all of that stuff. You don't need that stuff in your electrolytes. But a great way to start your morning is to have a glass of water with electrolytes. Number 1, and the other thing I tell clients is, when we change that morning wake up routine to allow to not be in that stressful state, I encourage people to set their alarm for whatever time needs to be, and then to have a full glass of water, preferably with electrolytes, salt and lemon or electrolytes. And then I have a meditation that I recommend people do. Just starting the morning out with some breath work and some relaxation. Generally, those things will produce a bowel movement. The water and the electrolytes in the system will actually signal to the liver to start with the bile release, right? With the liver and the gallbladder, starting the beginnings of digestion. And when our bodies think food is coming, the natural inclination is to let go of the old, right? To make room. So we start with that big glass of water. People always think it's coffee that stimulates the bowels. And while it does, it's actually just the fluid, just that act of having fluid in your stomach. So starting with the big glass of water, working on the meditation will generally produce a bowel movement if we're hydrated and if stress is an issue for us. So stress, lack of water or lack of hydration, that's number 2. Number 3 is lack of roughage or diet. Lack of roughage meaning no fiber, right? Let's talk about the typical American diet. A bagel with cream cheese and a coffee for breakfast, 2 slices of pizza and a Coke for lunch, a cheeseburger and fries and maybe a Sprite because you're watching your caffeine for dinner, right? Maybe there was a tomato on the burger. Maybe, probably not. But no vegetables, no fiber. Imagine that. I mean, that is a typical American diet.
And people wonder why they have problems.
And people wonder why they're constipated. That's sitting in your gut like sludge, like a rock. Doesn't want to move. Not doing anything, not helping you, definitely hurting you, right? Taking away. I always tell my clients, the food that you eat is either healing you or killing you. There are very few things that are super not, not doing any damage or helping. And that's what you need to consider when you're putting something in your mouth. Is this helping me or hurting me? Am I doing this because it's, is it something that I feel like I want or is it something that I need?
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a big one. Roughage is a big one. And when your doctor tells you eat more fiber, it is a good solution for people if you've got the probiotics in your gut, the bacteria in your gut to process that fiber.
Yeah.
However, if you don't have a lot of those good guys and that fiber is not breaking down, bloat city.
Right.
So if you're listening to me and you're like, I've tried that. My doctor said eat more fiber and I started eating an apple a day and oh my God, I looked pregnant by 10 a.m. You don't have the right bacteria to break that fiber down. You can't start there.
Yeah.
One of the other things I always recommend for people is taking gluten out of the diet when we are starting together. Gluten is crushing your gut, and it's actually not the gluten as much as it's the glyphosate. The glyphosate is the chemical that's sprayed on our wheat in this country. It's banned in other countries. It shouldn't be allowed here. It is destroying our gut lining. So removing that often helps people to heal the gut lining. And I run a test for all my clients. And on that test, there is a marker called the anti-gliadin IgA. And that shows us if people's bodies are reacting to gluten. Almost everybody comes in and says, I don't have any problem with gluten. We run the test. Numbers are off the chart. And they're like, that could be why I'm wildly inflamed.
And it can present in different ways. Like, I mean, you could have bloating, inflammation, like typical gut issues, but from the gluten, you could also like have severe depression,
Brain fog, eczema.
Yes. I suffered with all of those things and like went to school, was eating healthy, right? Like I was taught, what little bit I had in school. And no, once I took gluten out, I had no idea that the world was as colorful as it was. I mean, it was a game changer. I would never go back. It doesn't make any sense. But yeah.
And I encourage people, like we all have to be doing experiments on ourselves. We are all so biochemically diverse that what works for your sister's cousin's brother might not work for you.
Right.
And there's a reason, right? Number one, your gut is entirely different than that person. But we have to be willing to do those experiments. You have to be willing, if you're listening to this, to say, I'm 50 pounds overweight. Something's got to give. I'm going to try taking seed oils out of my diet for 30 days and see what happens. Try it. Do something, right? Or I'm really having upset stomachs after every meal. I need to figure out what's driving that. First thing I would take out would be dairy, especially my clients who are constipated. Dairy is a huge driver for constipation. It can shut down the motility of your bowels almost as much as something like a Vicodin, right? Those drugs that, you get those drugs from your doctor and they also hand you the stool softener because they know
the
what's
pain
coming.
pills.
Right, the pain pills and the stool softener. Think about milk that way for some people.
Yeah.
So that's number 3. So it was stress, water, and diet, right? Which encompasses really the fiber, the gluten, and the dairy aspect. Sluggish liver is a big problem in this country. Non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. The liver fat cells swell. Bile cannot be released or produced as much as necessary, which slows down digestion, causes constipation. Alcohol also causes that. If you are drinking alcohol regularly and you are eating processed food with seed oils, welcome to non-alcoholic fatty liver disease.
Yeah.
It is rampant in this society. It is a big problem. We do a lot to support the liver when we're working on constipation. It's a problem for a lot of people. And you should be looking, if you're getting a yearly physical, you should be looking at your ALT and AST, your liver enzymes. And if they're high, you should be talking to your doctor about that. That is no bueno, right?
Yeah.
That's saying, and you remember everybody out there that your liver is your master organ for processing your toxins, right?
Yeah.
Yes, it's important to poop to get those toxins out, but they have to be processed by your liver first. We need our livers in perfect condition.
Yeah.
That's number 4. Number 5 is really simple. It's medications. I'm sure you've seen it. People will come in on 5, 6 medications, and 3 of them are constipating.
Yeah.
So that just,
But they don't know it because
they don't know it. Right, they don't know it, and their doctors haven't told them that. So
Yeah.
a lot of times it's as simple as also counseling. Like, let's take a look at the medications you're on. Why don't you have a conversation with your prescribing physician about alternatives that might be less constipating,
Yeah.
right? Sometimes that's a big part of the picture. Sometimes just fixing that. Some people are doing everything else right, and they're banging their head against a wall because they're taking a medication daily that's shutting down their bowels.
Right.
So we always talk about that. Low minerals is another reason, right? We know magnesium. We know this about magnesium. 300 enzymatic processes in the body are controlled by magnesium. I also can tell you that I take Epsom salt baths probably 4 nights a week, and probably 4 nights a week, I also take magnesium glycinate, about 300 milligrams before bed. And in April, I had a minerals test done, and my doctor was like, "You're really low in magnesium." I was like, "That can't be. That just can't be." And she said, "Well, you're using it up as fast as you are taking it in." And so not only that, but the state of our farming in this country and our soils, the mineralization in our vegetables is not what it was. And remember that we're not really able to absorb minerals from rock. We're absorbing plant minerals. So that's another reason that we need to be eating these dark green, yellow, red, rich in polyphenol vegetables.
Yeah.
We need those minerals. So all of my clients do get some mineral support just to make sure everything's firing optimally, because it's amazing too for people out there with chronic fatigue or really low energy levels. You just might be undermineralized.
Yeah.
Your body needs all those minerals to do all those little dances. Take some minerals, multi-mineral supplement. I like liquid minerals. I drink distilled water only. When we talk about water, our tap water is not safe to drink any longer if you're listening to this. And if you're using a Brita filter, that's not cutting it anymore. I always recommend people who listen to me listen to the EWG. The Environmental Working Group are the watchdogs for our health. Their website is ewg.org. And if you go to their website, ewg.org/tapwater, you can put in your zip code, pull up your water company, and take a look at what you're drinking, what you're bathing in, what you're feeding your dogs.
It's pretty mind blowing.
It's pretty mind-blowing. It's really mind-blowing. I have a water distiller in my house. It lives in my basement, and it pumps water to one spigot and an ice maker. And I use that for cooking and drinking and my dogs. And that, for me, is the gold standard. Reverse osmosis is second. But both of those need to have minerals added back in. I have a liquid mineral, and I just add liquid minerals. I always recommend that this is a 32-ounce water bottle I got at Marshall. And I drink 2 a day. The first one in the morning gets minerals in it. And that's how I make sure that I'm getting, enough water. I drank about 3/4 so far, even though it's the morning, because I worked out this morning. But yeah, minerals are really important. So that's one of the root causes. Another one is mold and parasites. No one wants to believe they have parasites. However, we all do. They actually serve a lot of purpose in our body in the same way that candida, I don't have candida. We all have candida. Candida has a purpose in the body. It's when it becomes an overgrowth that it's a problem. Same thing with parasites. They are there. They sop up all the radioactive elements that we come into contact with a lot of times through the water we're drinking. And I want to remind people who say, "Oh, I only drink filtered water," whatever. When you go out to a restaurant and you have an iced tea or a cup of coffee, you go to Starbucks and you drink their coffee, that's tap water, friends. That's tap water. So don't think you're not drinking tap water. Know what's in your water and prepare yourself, prepare your body. We use things like binders, which the ones I use are activated charcoal based, and they grab onto some of these toxins and help pull them out in your stool. But parasites are a big problem. Mold is a huge problem. Depending on where you live, if you're living somewhere that was affected by hurricanes and flooding, and you have funky smells in your house, if you find that you are using toxic things like Glade plugins to mask the scents that you don't like, you have a big problem. Not only are you receiving toxic chemicals from your Glade plugin, which are a very big problem for your body, but the mold that underlies that is huge. It shuts down people's bowels. Remember that when we have infections in our bodies, the infection actually wants our body to be strong so it can thrive. But when we have mold in our bodies, mold is trying to decompose us from the inside out, right? It
Yes, that's what it
colonizes.
does.
Yeah,
That's
it
what it does.
causes a lot of problems. I always tell people, if you don't know if you have mold in your house, you can do the 1-minute mold test. Go into your bathroom and lift up the back of your toilet. That rectangular piece, take a smell. Should have no smell. There should be no black mold. There should be no green mold. The water should be clear. You should be able to see the bottom. If you've got mold growing in there, mold grows where there's water, and you have standing water in a toilet. So that's telling you that there are mold spores in the air and they are growing there. You have a mold problem in your house. It needs
I
to
don't
be
wanna look.
remedied.
I don't even want to go look.
Yeah, you need to. It's good. It's a good thing to do too if you're staying in an Airbnb, right? Like, know what you're getting yourself into. Always carry a portable air filter. Air quality is important. So mold and parasites, right? They'll shut down your bowels too. And I always consider that could be a problem for my clients, and we always explore that. And then the last one is really this just general dysbiosis. So if we've looked at everything else and people are saying, I drink plenty of water, I eat my fiber, I get good sleep and I'm not stressed, my liver, I don't drink, my liver is good, then we run a gut test and we see what's wrong. We see what's there. It's like shining a light, right? If you didn't know what was wrong, now you know. And I offer that test to my community in a program called Digestive Discovery. So you can log on to Digestive Discovery and order your own gut test. Within that, there's a little program that's built around that. Just gives you a GI map interpretation test so you can understand what the results mean. There's some information about healing your gut lining and leaky gut, just so people are empowered, right? Because I didn't have access to this when I was suffering. I had to
Right.
go to an expensive functional medicine appointment. And this way people can actually see if you've been suffering with constipation or diarrhea or stomach pain. I have plenty of case studies. I have a woman that came to me with really bad burning in her stomach. And she said anytime she ate anything, she just got really bad gastritis.
That was
And,
me my entire life. That was
and
me.
had an endoscopy and they didn't find anything. And when we ran the stool test, she had raging H. pylori.
Yeah.
And once we fixed that, she also had raging constipation. But both of those things were fixed because if anyone's listening and doesn't know, H. pylori is a bacteria that infects the lining of your stomach. It burrows in there and it releases an enzyme while it's there that lowers the acidity of your stomach so it can survive. By lowering the acidity of your stomach, you're causing all kinds of downline problems because now there's no acid to digest your food. So your food is leaving your stomach partially digested, meaning nutrients can't be extracted. Work is trying to be done in an area where you cannot further break down food without stomach acid. So people are winding up pretty sick from H. pylori, and you need to kill the bacteria and then raise the stomach acid back up. And people seem to be doing a lot better. But she didn't, the endoscopy didn't show anything. And if we had not done the testing, she would still be suffering.
Yeah. Well, and I know too with those endoscopies, if they ever do a biopsy, they're just taking one or two little pieces and you could easily be missing where it is because the cells are different in different places. And so there's so many things that functional medicine does address.
And I also had another patient who had an endoscopy, was told she didn't have H. pylori. I asked her to get the surgical report. There was no sample taken. They just took a look around and said everything looked fine. She had raging H. pylori with an autoimmune disease, right?
Yeah.
H. pylori causes autoimmune diseases for people out there listening. So, yeah, misdiagnosis, underdiagnosis. But that's why I love the stool test because you know what's there.
Right.
And then you fix it and then you can retest and make sure it's cleaned up and then go on your merry way.
Yeah.
Or you can just For people who don't want to spend the money to retest, you test, then you follow a protocol. Your symptoms disappear. You go on your merry way.
Right. Yeah. You don't always have to retest if you're feeling better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm curious for somebody who does have chronic constipation and they think they're doing all these things you mentioned, but they're super stressed out. They've got high anxiety.
Well, let's talk
And
about that for a second.
okay.
High anxiety comes from a messed up gut.
Yeah.
Your neurotransmitters, 75 to 90% of your neurotransmitters are made in your gut. The ones that keep you happy, the ones that keep you calm. If you're not making those because your gut's a mess, how can you not have anxiety? How can you feel mentally stable?
Yeah.
It's impossible.
Yeah. That's true. And I know even like with depression, like so much of that is because of things in your gut too, just the neurotransmitters.
And parasites too.
Hmm.
Parasites talk. There is some, I don't understand how it works, but it's really funny, but they have the power to sort of modulate your thoughts because plenty of people will be all in for a parasite cleanse. And then it comes time and they're like, I'm terrified. And there's no reason for it, right? It's just this feeling that overcomes them. And we say that's the parasites talking. They don't want to leave. But
Yeah.
they're doing a great job there. Mhm.
They're all kind of in this club. Like,
Mhm.
we're going to stay here. So,
You were
yeah.
going to say a patient who has chronic constipation and bad anxiety.
Yeah, maybe they're on medication for their anxiety because it's just debilitating. But they are trying to get rid of their gut issues, this chronic constipation. What do you say to clients that are dealing with that?
The first thing I say is take a gut test. Because then
Yeah.
you'll know. Then we'll know what we're dealing with. And then you'll have a roadmap. You can make a plan. You can stay on your anti-anxiety meds. We can definitely do work on your, with meditation and mindfulness, and tons of breath work stuff for anxiety is brilliant. And as your gut heals, maybe we can work with your doctor to reduce that medication.
Yeah.
Right? I have a client now who, God bless her, her husband travels for work. She's got 2 kids at home and they're younger, and she's drinking alcohol every night because she's got such bad anxiety. It's the only thing that she's found that calms her down until the kids go to bed, and then she takes a Xanax,
Mm,
right? That's a lot. It's a lot on your body, right? It's a terrible way really to manage that. So how do we unwind from that? And
right.
she and I are starting together on 2 nights a week. She's not going to drink.
That's a great start.
2 nights. But
Yeah.
we're not asking for miracles. We're taking small steps to have big changes down the line. And I reminded her that on those 2 nights, if your typical is you have a beer while you're making dinner and then another beer while you watch Extra at 7 o'clock on TV or whatever, you can't make dinner and watch Extra on the nights you're not drinking. It might need to be a pizza night, right? It might need to be eating dinner in a different room, in a different place, doing something different. It needs to be a different routine those 2 nights. And something that you look forward to, not punishing yourself, not because I'm drinking, I'm going to have to go, hike for 5 miles. No, make it lovely and enjoyable. Make it a self-care. End it with a bath. She's going to try there's a whole bunch of products on the market with things like kava, right, which are really relaxing. And she's going to try to find sort of a cocktail substitute that also has some nootropics that will help her body relax a little bit. But, we start where we are.
Mhm.
We've all been raised differently, some by parents who did a brilliant job with health and wellness, and some who came from a background where they had no knowledge of health and wellness themselves. And
Right.
so we need to inform ourselves. We need to start making changes that take us in the right direction. And with our clients, we start where you are. You
Yeah.
know? And I mean, I have clients that come that like I had this woman who walked in and she was like, I'm ready. I'm ready to do it. Sign me up for the whole thing. I'm also going to do the whole 30. And I'm doing this new weight class, and I'm walking it 3 times a week, blah, blah, blah. I mean, she was all in. Boom.
That
And
works for some people.
and
Yeah.
it's awesome for her. And I was there I was there right with her every step of the way to support and keep sort of driving the change. And with my newest client, we start slower. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that, Melissa. Thank you so much for sharing everything today and especially the 8 root causes. I really hope that people hear that and take that to heart. Is there anything else that you want to leave our listeners with today?
I think that's it. I just think it really comes down to foundational health. You hear a lot in the news about functional medicine now, but really what's important is the foundations: the sleep, the nutrition, the hydration, the mindfulness, and the movement. Those should be on your mind, right? All the time. And when I say those 5, I bet if you're listening, you know exactly where you're suffering the most. Maybe it's sleep. Maybe you have horrible sleep habits. That's where you start. If you don't drink enough water, simply start there, right? But start today. That's my urgent message. Start today. Work on your health today,
Yeah.
because the benefits are accruing over time. And if you're not working on your health, you're probably just getting a little bit sicker.
Yeah. This day and age, because of everything in our environment and our food, we do have to fight to be healthy. You can't just go through being lax about it and trusting this and that. I mean, you've got to fight to be healthy. So,
Yeah, they say like I have one aisle in my grocery store that's the health food section. One aisle. What's the
yeah,
rest of the aisles?
right.
Something to think
Exactly.
about.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
For
thank
sure.
you so much, Allison. It's been such a pleasure to be with you this hour.
This is awesome. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for being a part of my journey on What the Gut podcast. For a deeper dive into today's topics, head over to AllisonandWellness.com/whatthegut or find the detailed show notes linked below. Hey, and don't miss out on future episodes. Hit that subscribe button, and if you love this one, please leave me a review. Let's keep the conversation going over on Instagram. Connect with me and stay updated and engaged with my awesome community. Plus, share these valuable insights with your tribe. They deserve to feel as amazing as you do. You can find me at Allison_and_wellness on Instagram. Your support means the world to me. I'm looking forward to our next awesome chat. But until then, stay curious, don't drink too much coffee, keep the vibrant energy flowing, and take care of your gut. Catch you real soon. Oh, and hey, if you're ready to dive deeper into personalized wellness, check out my one-on-one health coaching program at AllisonandWellness.com. Let's make your journey to holistic health truly transformative.